Magic is found in every room, where people connect over a shared purpose. Luke, Hannah and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Hello and welcome to Magic in the Room. I'm Chris Province.
And I'm Hannah Bratterud.
And I'm Luke Freeman. And we are excited to be here on our 201st episode. We passed a big milestone. What do you guys think? I mean, are you like proud? When did we start this? Was this like 2000?
2019, but it feels like 2000. Fall of 2019 is when we started this, which is kind of crazy. It's almost 7 years, like over 6 years, 200 recorded episodes, a couple of albums, as Chris refers to them. We've got, some series of intentional leadership. We've got lots of things that we've explored over those years and conversations. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm a different person from when we started. Gone through.
Yeah. Pre-COVID Luke, pre-COVID is different than post-COVID Luke. I mean, just as shorthand, like our country's different, right? And just what will 7 years do, for any of us? Hopefully we're growing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's one day, I'm not quite ready to go back and listen through everything now, but it might be really interesting in 20 years to go back and just, wow, what evolution happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure, as we, take in different information, observe different things, we become different as we respond to all the things and just the results of the decisions that we make and just continuous development of ourselves, of our situation, how we go about creating the world that we want to live in. And that's why I love the work that we do, in that what applies to individuals applies to organizations. If you think about organizations are going through the same thing, taking in a changing market, changing dynamics, just constantly being served up different conditions to provide service and products in, and making decisions based on what information is available. And sometimes those are optimum decisions, sometimes they're less than optimum. But it comes down to, how am I letting my decisions stack, and how am I informing the decisions I need to make today based on what I've experienced in the past? And am I taking enough time to reflect on where I've been and the story that I'm writing in my current trajectory? Do I want to stay on that trajectory? Do I want to change that trajectory? How, violent does the response need to be if I need to shake loose from the trajectory that I'm on? Has a lot to do with how much momentum I have behind me. And I think there is so much in organizational science that we can take and apply at an individual level and develop and learn from. And similarly, there's so much that we can learn from ourselves and our experiences that apply to organizations pretty much one-to-one. It's very analog.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's super interesting, as we talked about, well, what do we want episode 201 to be? Looking back at one of our very first episodes, like, I don't remember if it was the very first, but it was in the first three. We just asked this question: why is this so hard? Like, why is leadership hard?
Very first episode. That's the question we asked.
Yeah. And today we thought, our topic would be, why is leadership an inside game? Because I think that kind of answers the question. If I was going to go and look back that 7 years and answer our own question, why is this so hard? It's because it is not a check the box thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is an inside game. I can't just checklist my way out of poor leadership to good leadership. I mean, that's what I believe, at least. So we want to talk about that today and explore it a little bit. Like, why is leading from within critical? Why can't it just be, oh, I'm going to subscribe to some sort of system or use some sort of communication strategy, and then all of a sudden I'm the most effective leader I could be. So
Mhm.
let's just start with that. I mean, do you all believe that? Like, is leadership an inside game? And is that part of why leadership is hard?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I believe it now more than ever. And it is also a never-ending journey of discovery and self-awareness, right? I am more self-aware now than I was 7 years ago, but not as self-aware as I will be in another 7 years, because I do believe that for me to continue to have a positive impact on this world, on the people and teams and organizations that I have some kind of leadership influence on, I have to take that to heart and continue to grow and develop myself and my own self-awareness. Self-awareness of what I notice and how I show up in the world, right? I just spent 3 days in a very immersive type of professional development training experience where I learned a lot. I had so much new insight about how I show up and the biases that I have, and the assumptions that I make, right? And so, yeah, this was a training about how to lead conversations in a way that really focuses on the other person or team and their issue. And what we don't realize, if we project our own issues so often into conversations and discussions, and we don't even know that we're doing it, right? And so for me, it was super eye-opening, right? It was I learned a lot of new skills and models and frameworks, but the secondary benefit, I think, to all the participants was just learning new self-awareness and new insight. And so for me, that's something I'm going to take now into my work. So I'll have a different lens and a different level of awareness, or at least be more aware of when I'm projecting my own stuff into the situation. And that's really what, yeah, to me, leading from within is about, is to never stop examining those things, because once we stop looking at that, we stagnate and we stop growing, and then we're not going to be as impactful to those we lead.
Yeah. And so Hannah, you speak to, we don't realize we're doing it. I do realize that I do that. Like I promise, like when I'm doing it, that's the whole thing is like I know, like I can say like I'm coming from a place that's based on my experience only. I can put that out there and say, here's my read. I can take a position, but yes, those are always going to be painted with my bias, my life experience, what I think I know, which is dangerous, right? Like at some level, because I still don't know way more than I know. And even the things that I think I know may not play out today the way they played out yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think I think we create a lot of risk as leaders. And people always look at me weird when I say, everything will be great as long as you don't think you know something.
Yeah.
The minute a leader thinks they know something, the market or their teams or something will break down and prove them wrong. And
Yeah.
so that's why we have to be like, stay curious, question our assumptions. But what you call out there and why I love having this space is that we can talk about the difference between being a mentor or an advisor, which have position and bias and experience baked into those, versus a coach or a facilitator, where those things should be free of bias.
Mhm.
So depending on what I'm doing, I need to have different tactics as a leader. If
Yep.
I'm mentoring, it looks one way. If I'm advising, it looks a way. If I'm coaching or facilitating, I'm trying to free that space, almost make it sterile,
Mhm.
so that what it's colored by are the other people's experience and where they need to go, and really have them direct that. And sometimes a team can get there in an hour. Sometimes it takes them, months. So again, I think, what is the role of mentor and advisor? Maybe it's just to shorten that time, right?
Mhm.
If you interject a position, maybe, and it can accelerate. But the whole journey of leadership coming from within, or it's an inside game, it's testing what I think I know. It's being open to learning things that I don't. And ultimately, I love that saying, like we reach the top shelf of life by standing on the books that we've read and the projects that we lead.
Mhm.
Like it's that idea of learning and doing and trying to become wiser as a result. And that's the whole thing. Like, as we think about 2019 to now, I hope that I'm wiser. I'm hope that I think I know less today than I knew in 2019, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's kind of my take on why it's an inside game, because it's always a test of our own assumptions and our own ability to synthesize ideas and build syndicates and move communities, organizations, our families, ourselves forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, what's so interesting about this whole journey, right? Because I mean, it's the whole Socratic thing of the more I know what I don't know. And, a couple of us has been around the sun now 50 plus years. And
Mm.
yeah, I have gained a lot of knowledge. I've gained a lot of, I hope, some wisdom along those years. And I'm also increasingly aware of how much it is that I don't know, right? And that's why this particular experience I was part of was super eye-opening, because you're right. I do know that I do that because I know that everybody does that, but we're not always aware of how we do it, when we do it, and in what ways, right? So give it, and this was for the context of a specifically for coaching and facilitation contexts, right? Where it is important, because one of the things that I really took with me from that is, like, the moment you think you know something, or the moment you know something, you stop being curious.
Mhm.
And when we stop
Yeah.
being curious, then yeah, there's nothing
Bad
to
we'll
learn.
just say bad things happen.
Yes.
Yeah. So both of you mentioned wisdom in why is this an inside game? And like, what is wisdom? Like, how are you defining that? And why does leadership depend on wisdom? I guess the things that it sparks for me is like, this world is a place that isn't always black and white. And I think as we rise through leadership experiences in our lives, oftentimes we'll encounter more and more things that might feel gray. So, when you say wisdom, is that what you mean? Do you mean something else? Like, why is wisdom required for leadership?
A good question. um, I mean, wisdom is what allows us to make decisions that have lasting impact, positive impact, to have some awareness around not just short-term results, but wisdom that's not, like, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? And maybe that's a whole nother topic to explore, but making wise choices that are not tainted by undue pressure, that's not tainted by um, a specific circumstance, that's not tainted by the pressure for a short-term gain. Those are some of the things I think about when I think about why wisdom matters in leadership.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I
wisdom,
think,
I hear you saying,
yeah.
is about the long game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's the power of discernment learned over time,
Mm,
Mm.
right? Like, and when we fail to discern, I mean, if we deliver indiscriminate product to indiscerning customers, we're going to end up with a meaningless business,
mhm,
right? The power of discernment is the idea of curation. I'm trying to curate a world that I want to live in. I'm trying to curate a, a, a business that we're all proud of. I'm trying to contribute to a family that is healthy and loving and that requires discernment. And to behave in unwise ways is harmful to the communities that I'm a part of and my own individual feeling of gratitude and meaning and all the things that may spark joy. But it's, to me, a wise leader, can delay gratification, to Hannah's point, right? Being wise is about delaying gratification. Being wise is about being humble. Being wise is being committed to learning, harnessing patience. Like, it's okay to walk into a space and be comfortable being uncomfortable versus running in and not knowing what's next and panicking as a result.
mm,
It's time to reflect. It's appreciating difficult situations that I'm only where I am today and who I am because something I've lived through has been hard.
mm,
It's those are the things I think that really are hallmarks of becoming wise. I would never, one, I'm not the one that gets to say if I'm wise or not, right? That's up to everybody else to say. Um, and, but I can commit to the process of becoming wiser.
mhm. Yeah, I like that. The process of becoming wiser, which I think is this journey of leading from within, is to become anchored, centered, aware, um, so that I can engage in that process intentionally and ongoingly.
Yeah. And I think it's tied back to values, right? What are the things that if I live these values, I have a shot of becoming more wise? And that's where, to me, like, it's that idea of like being loving, being humble, being respectful, being courageous, um, you know, just living in truth, whatever truth I can seek and hopefully find along the way. Those are internal values. Those are things that I want to subscribe to in order to gain discernment over time. And I learned quickly that if I behave or make decisions without discernment, bad things happen. Like that is shorthand, right? But life gets really hard. But Luke, I'm curious, like your take. Why do you think this is all an inside job? And what makes it an inside job for you? And if the end goal is not becoming wiser, what is the end goal?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to start with your last question, which I don't think the end goal is becoming wiser. Like, I think the end goal for me, and this is for me, right? But we're talking about leading from within, and you just talked about
Hmm.
values. So, like, what do you value? For me, leadership is about leaving the world better than I found it. So it's really about like outcomes and impact. And so then I go to like, how do I get outcomes and impact? And you all use the word wisdom, which I think is a really good word. to me, like why we need wisdom is because we live in this world of ambiguity. And, we know that there are studies that link comfort with ambiguity with positive outcomes. So in 2022, there was this Journal of Applied Behavioral Science study that found that a leader who could tolerate ambiguity, their followers had higher levels of performance.
Mm.
So because the leader was comfortable with ambiguity, the followers were actually more successful. And then similarly, in just last year in 2025, the Project Management Journal did this longitudinal study that they published and basically said that the more that project managers could tolerate ambiguity, the more the mood on the team and the project team was high, the more they could adapt to changes in the project, and then ultimately like how far the project and how quickly that project could progress. So this idea of wisdom, like to me, it's about being able to take what the world's giving you and respond instead of react. And it provides agency, right? For me to make the world, or for the leader to make the world, shape it in the direction they want it to go. And then I think the other thing that I'm curious what you all think about this is that like why is leadership an inside job? Well, I don't think change happens without courage. And we've said that that's been a little bit of a catchphrase of ours. Like positive change only happens through the courage of a leader. Like systems don't change on their own. Status quo is hard to break, and without courageous leadership, meaningful, lasting change doesn't happen. And so to me, like courage doesn't come from anything but this inside work, from anything from like knowing yourself, understanding your fears, understanding your anxieties, being able to master those, or at least become comfortable enough with them and aware enough of them that when the time comes for courage, you can step out and make a meaningful change. So I think that's a question I have for you all. Like, what's the role of courage in this leading from within thing? And like, where does courage come from? Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. I I think it's hard to be courageous, and maybe that's the whole notion of courage, right? Um, I say this a lot, like the pressures of the world, like the pressure, like it asks for people to be average.
Mhm.
Like I don't get fired from a corporate job if my product looks like everybody else's product.
Mhm.
As long as I look like someone else, then there is no risk. And
Mhm.
that keeps the distribution really normal,
Mhm.
right? Like there's a lot of people in the middle, and there's some over on the left, and there's a few over on the right. And I think it's helpful to think about performance in the terms of a normal distribution. And there are very few organizations that are right skewed. There's a lot in the middle, and there's a few on the left.
Mhm.
And it's if you do what feels natural, then you are being pulled to the middle. Like when I'm in a group of other leaders and I don't speak into an issue that I have feelings about, like I'm a member of this community to add value. If I don't show up with my perspective, I'm discounting the value of the community.
Mhm.
So, but are people going to think I'm weird? Are they going to make a judgment on me? That person hasn't been there long enough. He's never been in this industry before. What's he know? They just walked in. So I tend to default maybe to people that have been here, they know their way around, they obviously have more subject matter expertise than I do. So I'll just default, like I'll sit here and shut up and keep my mouth closed and let them do the things because obviously they know. And by doing that, I'm making this community less valuable. And but that's what it feels like the room wants me to do that. It doesn't feel like the room wants me to offer a perspective or insights. And that's exactly why it's hard to be courageous because, I'm going to look different. And that is the whole idea of curation and discernment, when we can inform our decisions in a way that's unique to us and build something that's aligned with us, it's going to be courageous.
Yeah.
But the work is in finding out what I believe, who I am, and how I want to show up. Am I showing up in character? And I like to reference Scott Davies, and like, am I doing deep acting? Am I doing surface acting? Or am I showing up truly as myself? And we know when we ask people to do deep acting day in and day out, like eventually they unplug, they disengage, they go exit bound. Again, bad things happen when we have to do deep acting. And the closer that I can behave in a way that's aligned with who I truly am in character with my values, then I'm going to have higher levels of performance. And that goes for members of any community and any organization.
Yeah, that sparked a few thoughts for me. I think leadership has a lot to do with examining, and this lens of leading from within is examining our own relationship with discomfort, because being different is uncomfortable. Having courage is uncomfortable. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's feeling the fear or the anxiety and taking action anyway. That is different, right? Learning, we talk about how the learning zone lies outside the comfort zone. You have to get a little uncomfortable in order to learn and grow. And so I think both on an individual level and an organizational level, right, there's some discomfort inherent in growth, and therefore it takes courage to step out of what feels comfortable. And then, Chris, as you talk about like being the same or being different, right? Being the same is safe. And we see that in, wild animals, in any culture where fear is prevalent, everything looks the same, right? Because if you look different than the other animals in your herd, you're going to be a target. And this happens in nature all the time. And it still happens in human nature, even though we, in some cultures, we're better at cultivating and encouraging diversity, but diversity can only happen when there's less fear, because fear is what keeps us the same. And so if courage has something to do with recognizing that fear is present, but being aware of that, and then acting contrary to what fear would have us do, then I think that has a lot to do with leadership.
Yeah, and I think we're in a really interesting time. So what I heard both of you saying is that there are incentives for sameness, incentives for status quo, and they're really strong. Like the incentive structures are really strong in a job, in our families, in the world, right? I think about anytime we see, and this is just a little bit of an object lesson here, anytime we see someone who is voted out of their seat, right? I'm just going to give a political example. They're voted out, they lose, they're a longtime politician, and they've been toeing the line with their party, confirming nominees, you know, going along to get along so they don't, make the party bosses mad, right? And then they lose and they have another 6 or 8 months of their term. And what all of a sudden they're on Bill Maher and they're on newsroom, they're on these places and they're like firing shots at their own party. Well, like, guess what, all you people, and I don't mean to be crass, but like, we don't need you to grow a pair now. Like, we needed you to grow a pair back whenever you were going along to get along and nodding and saying, yes, sir. Like, that's what we all fight against. I'm not saying that to be super critical. Like, but their incentives, the incentives that lead to that behavior, we all live in that incentive structure every day. And so for us to step out and actually believe something enough that we take on risk for ourselves, right? Enough that we actually change a system, enough that we actually move our team forward, and enough that we launch a new product. Like, we have to have a level of clarity and conviction that does not come from checking a box on, well, here's what I have to do to be a good leader.
Yeah. And as you say that, I think about, Dr. Jeff Simmons and that his whole line of work around intensity of belief and how
Mm-hmm.
moral behavior really relies on that idea, right? Like what the the behavior I exhibit is based on my morals and how intensely I believe in those. Like, what are the principles, the guiding principles that I believe in? And there again, you see something that applies individually and organizationally, um, and at team levels. And have, if I believe intensely enough, I will be courageous. If it's a meh, then it's a meh. Like, I'll go along to get along. I don't care enough to put my neck on the line for this. Or, I'll go to the mat for this one. Like we know the saying, right? I'll go to the mat on this. Like I believe intensely about it. Or like, whatever. Like, but we have to be really careful that the things that we're passive about don't stack up and build a system of incentives for lack of activity.
Mm.
Yeah. So let me apply this and then um and then we'll move towards wrapping up. But if I'm thinking about effective leadership, the way that we're defining it, right? People who have the courage to change things, people who believe things intensely, people who have the wisdom and the emotional maturity to sit with ambiguity, who have the perspective to make decisions that are best for the long term and are not reactive and harmful in the long term. Like, that's not just an executive leadership skill. That's not just something that we want the top 5% of our organizations to have. We want everyone in our organizations to be growing in their wisdom, their patience, their comfort with ambiguity, their courage, their discernment. And so, as we wrap here, like Hannah, I know we have a whole season on leading from within, right? Leading yourself is what we called it. Um, we have that program that we talked about in that season that now is called Leading from Within. Like, Hannah, can you share us a little bit about like what are the things that we teach just practically? Like, how do you develop yourself to lead from within? And if someone wants to start somewhere, like what are some ways that they would start or some areas that they would look at?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's, and I think we'll put some links to some other episodes that go into some of those topics specifically, but it really is about building self-awareness and clear awareness around what do we notice, what choices do we have, and how do we choose, and how do we take meaningful action, right? And we use this iceberg as kind of a central metaphor where there's all these things under the surface, below the waterline, right, that are invisible to others, but often also to ourselves, unless we take the time to really examine our own beliefs, our values, our purpose, our strengths, right? And those are some of the things that we'll look at, right? Because everything that's in that iceberg impacts what we notice, how we choose, and the actions that we take, right? What everybody else sees is our action, our behaviors, or lack of it. And we're judged by that, right? What they don't see is our intent, and what they don't see is what led to that action or inaction. And so those are things like, I mean, there's different personality aspects, that's part of that, right? Our strengths is part of that, our values are part of that, our mindset, how we deal with stressful situations and why we might be more reactive in certain types of situations than others, our personal well-being, and then our sense of hope, right? These are all kind of topics that we examine, that we look at, that are part of each of our icebergs, right? That help us become more aware of why we do what we do, how we show up the way we do, so that we can do it more intentionally.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you want to start somewhere, I mean, there's those episodes, they're great, but yeah, what are our values? Where do you derive hope? How do you respond in stressful situations? Like, we got to just do the hard work if we're going to keep growing as leaders. Well, final thoughts. What are y'all taking away from this conversation?
Leadership is hard. It's
We're back where we started. Wait, you mean this is
yeah.
a circular
Why?
game we're playing here?
Yeah. Why
An
is it so
upward
hard?
spiral?
Because it's supposed to be. I mean, it's deeply human. It's emotional. It's intellectual. It's physical. It's relational. I mean, there's not a harder thing to do. The easy thing is to transact my way through life. The easy approach is to wake up and let life fly at me and not think about what I believe, not think about or develop the intensity around what I believe, or not measure the success of my days through my behaviors. It's, and then what happens is if I don't think about how I'm guiding my behavior, then I behave in unthinkable ways. And life becomes chaotic. And the thin veil that exists between chaos and order is pierced. And I think maybe that's what the veil is discernment. And that's what allows high performers to perform, and what keeps less than optimal performers from reaching their peak.
Yeah, I think final thought for me is that in the world that we find ourselves in currently, a world that is rife with conflict, polarization, artificial intelligence that's threatening to undo everything we thought we knew about how the world is supposed to work. um, Self-awareness is one of the most important skills for any leader to develop, to become aware, to become discerning, to gain wisdom, to have courage, to do the right thing, and to be able to help others move forward productively and with hope when so much feels hopeless, right? We have to be champions of hope in a cynical world. And that to me is what leading from within is about.
Yeah. I'm going to get kind of idealistic here for my takeaway. Super practical, but also might sound idealistic. But to me, this is just super practical. So, like, literally, this is not hyperbole. Literally, the most powerful people in the world. Like, what do they want for you and me? What is their vision for you and me? To be consumers. That's it. The system is working perfectly for the most powerful people in the world, right? All they want for us is to be consumers. And so if we want something else for our lives, like, no one's going to do it for us. No one's coming, right? We got to be the hero of our own story. And if you're a servant leader or you aspire to that, the hero of a few other people story as much as you can be. So ain't nobody going to do it. So we got to do it from within and build the fortitude to do it. So that's my takeaway. Well, 201. We'll see where this journey takes us next, what the next turn of the spiral leads us to. Another hard thing, I'm sure, in another 7 years. I'm grateful to be doing it with you all.
Likewise.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to stop. I'll read us out here. Magic in the Room is hosted by Chris Province, Hannah Montana Bratterud, and Luke Freeman. It's produced by Ethan Babylon. Social media management by Emma Holland. Our theme music is by Evan Graham. You can find his music on Apple Music. This episode was recorded remotely from Bixby, USA and Big Sky, Montana. Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. You can find us at purposeandperformancegroup.com. You can find previous episodes at magicintheroom.com. Connect with us, find us. We'd love to have a relationship with you. Have a good one.